This is Rebecca Jernigan, your tour guide into discoveries, coming to you live from the heart of America to around the globe via the World Wide Web, satellite, and podcast. Let's journey together into the realms of the known to the unknown in search of enlightenment, knowledge, and truth.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet Earth. This is your host, Tobias Beherrall, and you are listening to Journeys with Rebecca, right here on wolfspiritradio.com and being simulcast every week on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio B. Some of the usual program reminders for you tonight. I look forward to interacting with you all later in the show. Please remember, just put your questions and on our topics in all capital letters in the chat room so that they're easier to see, and we look forward to talking about some of them later in the show tonight. I would also like to remind you that both Revolution Radio and Wolf Spirit Radio are listener-supported, entirely listener-supported, and I really urge you to give them a donation, big or small. It all matters to ensure that you get the best of continued programming. My scheduled guest tonight was Los Angeles author, intuitive, and healer Yasmina Agrio-Sher. For reasons unclear, I have not heard back from her, so instead we look forward to talking with her about her best-selling Amazon book titled Mirror of My Soul, Sanctum of My Heart, another time. Instead, I have the pleasure of spending the next 2 hours with you and JP, discussing anything and everything that is important, curious, strange, or fascinating at this time. JP, how are you tonight?
Hello. Hello. Uh-huh.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hang on. There we go. Now I can hear me. You hearing me? There you go. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, JP. You kind of twisted my arm into doing a live show tonight, didn't you?
I didn't have to do it much. I mean, look, I'm thinking, I used to have you on my show as a guest, right?
Yeah, right.
So there you are. Now the situation is, here I am, I'm producer. But everybody wants to hear me talk. So, let's talk.
Well, I understand. I mean, I thought it would be really a smart idea to run a replay of one of my favorite interviews, but you're right. I mean, it's always a little better when it's new and it's fresh and it's live, right? So, heck, why not? I think we'll have a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I can already hear in my head what you're saying, so that's all good. So, yeah, look, okay, so we spoke years ago, and we've had a journey since then, both of us. Have lived lives. We've gained, we've lost, we've succeeded, we've failed. We've gone through the usual mill, the usual mill of 2017. Like everybody's had their challenges, but also through those challenges, the old thing, everybody learns something from these things. And here we are. We're now on a higher turn of the spiral. Things make a lot more sense. And there's a sense of perspective to it all, where things fit in. Wouldn't you say now?
Well, it's really interesting, actually, the way you put that, because, thinking back when you and I first met, and there was, quite a lot of us, sort of a group that sort of formed in this, virtual world we call the World Wide Web, and we reached out to each other, and things like Revolution Radio, Wolf Spirit Radio were created from nothing. Created from nothing, just an idea and a concept and a need. And if just what you're talking about there, when I look back at that, at how we were, I mean, talking you and me, some of the other people that were part of it, and then projecting to now and how we are different, as you were alluding to there, I'm very happy about it because, to be honest, there there has been immense clarity on many different subjects, immense vast openings on and discoveries and understanding on different levels of things. So in a way, in a very real way, I kind of think we've made some progress. What do you think, JP?
University of life, mate. University of life. And doing it, in a sense, live on air is something, that's the other thing, is like, it's all very well to do it sort of privately in the space of your own home where nobody's going to be looking over your shoulder, looking at you making mistakes. But here we are. It's like we're having to learn to play violin in public.
Yeah.
So,
it really is. It really is. And it's not, like, I think, it's easy for some of us to take for granted, these are, people that talk on the internet radio and sometimes on live radio and TV and things like this. But honestly, what you said is so true. It takes, it's quite a different perspective to do it in front of people live. It's almost like, the Brady Bunch growing up with the whole world watching. And it may not be the whole world, but I'm telling you, there's enough of the world that sort of observes and goes through it with us, and did go through it with us, and continues to go through it with us. And it is absolutely different, like you said, than doing it behind closed doors and talking, privately on Skype, which certainly we've done many times over the years, and with other people as well. But to go out and talk about our beliefs, our understanding, our experiences, the things that annoy us, the things that, honestly, the things from our hearts, because we're very open people. We're very, very open people, I think. And that's sort of, I think that's a big part of the allure, the sort of, the beauty of it, because that's when real things come out of it. That's not just a perspective. It's not just our perspectives. It's a living experience, and that means it's not just ours. I think it's really important, and it's been a big deal to me. It's been a big deal to me.
In the last couple of weeks, I have indulged in a bit of a geekdom. I have been watching Star Trek conferences where they have, for instance, the original Star Trek Next Generation crew 30 years on. They've got Patrick Stewart and all the actors who played it, and they're talking about a job they did 30 years ago. Do you remember when you were a mechanic when you were in your 20s? Tell us about that job. Tell us about, remember this guy, he brought in a Triumph, and tell us, when they took the head gasket off, do you remember seeing the pitting on the top of the cylinder head? That's on the piston. That's the sort of level of the kind of questions that they were being asked. It was really crazy. And of course, they were saying, as the show went on, they became more and more like their character. And their character became more and more like them. So there was a merging, and that's good casting, really. It really is, because you're embodying the energy of the character. But as you were saying, there is an element of, it's been a bit of a space opera,
Yeah.
There are people who have been listening, and I hear people, I get messages from people, I've been listening to you for 4 years now. Oh, really? And there's something in the brain doesn't quite connect there yet as to the kind of level of responsibility that I have to everybody who's listening to, don't take everything here as truth. I often play act, and it's not me, but the idea that we're characters transforming into other characters in front of people's ears is the thing that I'm brought back to. And the idea that the Star Trek crew, when I listen to them, when I hear their voices again, now it brings me to tears because somehow it touches a nostalgic frequency in me. I remember those days. It brings me back to when I was younger and much more carefree.
Because even though from what we see with our eyes, it looks like we're just the observers of Star Trek and the observers of the experience of their shows and their generations, we really were part of the reality of the whole experience itself. We were part of it. We went along with it. And in a very real way, that's exactly what I was describing with the audience, your audiences, my audiences, and all of our, connections with people over all of these years. And it really is a big deal. The nostalgia part of it is really just another sign that it really means something, perhaps even on a bigger level than we realize, unless we put some real serious thought to it, right?
Indeed. And so here we are, several years on. 2012 came, 2012 has gone, 2014, 2016, here we are, we're nearly 2018 now. And, we had no idea. I was waiting for the great event to happen, and we could all pack up and go home or, get on with whatever our lives were being gotten on with. It's just that the job seems to have gotten a lot more complicated, actually taking on real responsibilities for something. Or is what we were just
what we were just talking about. What we were just talking about, maybe that was the event.
Yeah,
like you were talking about. You were talking about, Star Trek and the questions, and then coming into their personalities, their characters. Really, that's exactly what we've done. That's what we've all done together. We've come into our characters, and we ebb and flow, and we get more information. We make more connections, not to a fantasy self, but to who we really are. And this has been the journey. Truly, I think that's a great example with, the Star Trek team, because they may think they're just being creative, or they may think that they're just, connecting to some of the characters that some writers in some dark room in the back, the back of the movie lot have written, but clearly it's much more than that, and they're connecting to other parts of themselves that lay within their subconscious, other parts of themselves that live within different dimensions and different places and times. Some people will call it the higher self. Some people will call it the timeless self. I like the timeless self, even though it's all one and the same. To me, the fact is, it seems like our journey is one where we're really trying not just to find answers, but we're trying to find ourselves. And, incredible changes can happen in such short periods of time. And, many times I've said to people, look, sure, I may be talking on the radio, I may be out there around the world talking with people and working with people, doing all of the things that I do, but, it wasn't that long ago, really, in the grand scheme of things, not long ago at all, that I could barely even focus and concentrate to even speak in public. Do you remember, JP? Me being on your radio shows many years ago? Not even that many.
We had to coax you out with little bits of string and peanuts.
Oh, dude, you had to send me chocolate. You had to do all sorts of magical things just to get me to, be able to. And it wasn't just speaking. I wasn't scared of speaking. It was that I couldn't concentrate. So, just add to everything that we're talking about here. And it's not like me patting me on my back, even though I think I will. Hold on. There, I feel better. It's amazing because it gives not only me hope, but I hope it gives other people hope that we really can, as individuals and together, make progress. Because, oh gosh, everything I do, everything that we talk about, every bit of what we live, and I know it's similar for you, is what creates this progress. It's passion. It's passion because we've had success with it. We can make the changes. It's exciting. That's where we're at now.
It's wonderful to be able to actually help real people and just say, I'm here, and people call me up, and we sort things out, and they go away, and it's like they get so much more clarity. I really love it. It's just like being able to tidy somebody's house, but much easier. Like of hoovering and of vacuuming and of doing all that stuff. Anyway, listen, we've got an old friend who would like to join us. Shall we bring her in? Let's engage the beam, shall we?
Engage. Incoming.
Energize. Hang on, let's try that again. No, not that one. There we go. She's beamed aboard. Would you like to meet her in your ready room? I'll escort you.
Bring her to my ready room, JP.
If you would come with me. There we are.
We have totally perfected the ancient practice of geekdom.
Captain, may I introduce it to you?
Welcome to the Starship Tobias.
It's almost ridiculous having you two together.
Well, it's pretty amazing having Tracey Kennedy together with us.
Hey, can you turn up? Or come closer. Come closer.
No, I don't think I can. Okay, let me try.
Because you sound like you're right in the back of the box. A bit more.
Okay.
Come right close.
I would know. If I get any closer, I'm going to have to marry you.
That wouldn't be so bad. Anyway, hey, how are you?
Good. It was so lovely just hearing you guys talking together. And I'm like, I need in. Because of many, many things. But we started this together, 3 of us, with Rebecca.
Yeah. A long time ago. Do you remember when it was, you guys?
Long ago. It was almost 10 years.
See, everybody says this similar thing. They say, oh, it was almost 10 years ago. To me, it was like, well, okay, 10 years, that takes it to, 2007? Oh, I guess that's probably about right. It seems like a heck of a lot longer. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it was about 2008, because I remember that's when I moved back to my house in 2009 in October, exactly 10 years from when I moved out of the same house. Long story. So I've got it kind of fixed then. That's when I started my own radio thing, and I somehow picked up a picture of me at that little station there that I'd made, that my friend had taken. I'll put it up on the thing in a minute. So anyway, yeah. So it's about 8-9 years. It's been lifetimes, don't you think?
Yeah, it's amazing how much can happen in such a short period of time. I often say, especially to older people, it comes up quite often in my practice. I say to them, look, we live a new lifetime easily every 7 years or so. And I really believe that, because if you think of the last 7 years or 10 years as we're discussing right now, it truly seems like almost a complete lifetime. I don't mean from, sucking the baby bottle to, being put in the grave, but I mean, we have experienced a lot of things and made a lot of changes, and it's a huge time period. It's cool.
Every 7 years, it's a big deal, and that's physiologically true. Your body completely remakes itself in 7 years. We may not notice it anymore, but it happens.
Now, what about the world itself? Is it just us that changed, or did the world and the environment and the reality around us change?
It's so awesome. I was going to say weird, but I'm not going to say weird. I'm just going to say awesome, because of what I've been studying lately, and the new thing that's going on with the new Star Trek, and they're talking about mushrooms and how it connects, and they're actually using the guy who actually talked about mushrooms here. His name is Paul Stamets, I think, and he's talking about the connection of things, and I had started maybe
2 months ago trying certain mushrooms to help me heal because they told me this time, Tracy, you can't do it. As a matter of fact, they not only said I couldn't do this, they said, you will never be able to sit up again. So after I threw myself off the bed onto this guy to just like bite him, because I actually couldn't sit up, but you know, I felt the need to attack him anyway. I found these things of this network, and this network that is not only connecting the planet, which probably says that the internet had to happen, had to, because in times of crisis was the time that the internet that is organic connected, and this may be connecting the entire universe, and this could be the thing that all the ooey gooey kind of new agey people say we are all connected, but we actually may be by this ancient network that we have to connect to, because there's only two things. There are beings that connect and combine and grow, or there's entropy, which is basically chaos and disorder and destruction. You got the two choices. We can choose. And we're at this point. We have Earth, our awesome Earth, is going through a change that it's never had to go through because the species here is causing it. There's been no species as destructive as us, and I'm ashamed to. And I am not cutting myself out of that species. This body knows what it's done. So I'm glad to know that there are beings that are still connecting, and you too, I'm your biggest fans. So I'm just calling to say, yay!
Well, thank you. We adore you, Tracy, and it's really just always good to reconnect with people that have been there from the beginning and all along the way. You are a great supporter, and we support you as well, so thank you.
Tracy, we know you. You know we love yous.
And I always want to ask you to say it like a pirate every show, but I try not to because I'm grown up.
There, I did it for you.
Thank you so much.
It's automatic. It's automatic now. Tracy, that's awesome. So JP, what's your comment on that? What do you think when someone talks about we're all connected? What does that mean to you?
Well, I'm going to have to stop saying, that's, I'm going to have to retrain my voice. Anyway, it's a very interesting concept that there is a fungal network that is the largest organism on the planet, everywhere. And it's all the threads of mycelium, or mushrooms as we call them, but mushrooms are like the fruit. So it's like the being that fruits mushrooms, the mycelium network, are long threads that squiddle through the ground. And it appears also from various people's work that those long threads carry telepathic signals. And so we transmit telepathic information through the chakras in our feet into the mycelium network that then connect with the major ley lines. They're like the trunk. They're like what do they call them? The local loop compared with the trunk. And exactly. So it's and I agree with you, Tracy. If the internet didn't exist, it would form itself, because that's the nature of things, to connect. I believe that stars connect using plasma, and plasma, plasm. that word goes everywhere. Everywhere is a plasm, isn't it? And, I was banging on about my plasma globe theory of everything. So, yeah, everything's a plasma globe.
It's interesting because when you're talking about that, first of all, it reminds me of the tree of life, because the tree of life has roots, it has an upper part. But it also reminds me of what I would call, or many of us would call, threads of consciousness. Rebecca might call it information streams. You call it telepathic communication with mycelium network into the ley lines. So I think it's fascinating because we're looking at at least two different parts of this. We're looking at the physical manifestations of this network, and then we're looking at the not physical, the other dimensional aspects of a consciousness system. And I think it's fascinating because in so many cases, consciousness itself is pushed out of the equation, and people are looking at just what they can see with their eyes and feel with their hands. So consciousness is obviously something that this is, what is life without consciousness? What is life? It would be an automaton. It would be the Borg. There would be no consciousness. It would be a machine. But really, it's these sort of biological and sometimes not so biological machines that integrate with consciousness, feeling, emotions, and communication with one another. And this is sort of what manifests as life and manifests as change. It manifests as new inventions, new experiences, and it's always one of my most favored topics of study and discussion, because as much as we use it, as much as it is a part of us, most of those conscious beings in this world are quite unconscious about consciousness. It's fascinating to me. There's so many levels to it that are still sort of suppressed. There's levels of it that are unexplored, at least within this world, within this time frame. Certainly many aspects of consciousness have been concealed over time. Some of the truths of the science of consciousness, the science of communication, the science of life itself have been obscured. And I was actually just talking with one of my students today about the same subject. And while everything has its pros and cons, I think one of the greatest things that have sort of obscured the science of consciousness is what we call science itself. It's this sort of box of science and understanding and explanation. They call the greatest advancements of our time the great science, and I'm not putting it down because obviously these are intelligent people, in many cases meaningful people that want to make a change, but at the same time the system of science is so often such that it creates a box that it wants to put people in, it wants to put information in, it wants to put right and wrong within the box. And it's when we begin to look outside of that box, or attempt to, that we run into the real science of life, consciousness, and the universe itself. Isn't that, I just think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because that's how I see it. Not just how I see it, but that's how I live it and recognize it and experience it every day. It's just sort of... It's just such an important part of who I am, so I love talking about these things because to get outside of that box, sometimes we have to be pushed out of it, we have to be urged outside of it, or sometimes we have to be challenged outside of it. I could go on and on about that, but I'll pause there and get your comments, JP or Tracy.
Trace?
You know, guys, okay, I love you two both, and I'm saying it again. We are so pushed in a way of looking for the silver bullet. This one thing cures all of these things. But they forget the fact that nothing works in separation. Everything works when it's connected. Plants are very, very complicated. So when they make drugs that try to mimic a plant, it's usually poison, because you can't mimic a plant. We do not have science that evolved. Plants are very complicated, and they're individual. Although the funny thing, because I've been listening to you guys for the last couple of weeks a lot, and the one thing that isn't said enough is that with our DNA, we are basically one person. Our DNA is so self-similar that they found that we are not different. We are not male and female. We are not from different continents. We are not different. Our DNA says there's one person on this planet. But the microbes in our bodies react differently to almost everything. Some people can have a spoonful of sugar and it fuels their body. Other people can have a spoonful of sugar and it almost kills them. I went through this because the doctors tried to help me with their drugs, which was like awesome in a horrific way. We are the same person, but they can't explain how we're not. The only thing that can explain how we're not is what JP and Tobias tell you. We are not from here. And they admit 99% of what's in your body is not human, not from here. And one of the best supplements on this planet that you can buy right now is actually not from this planet. CoQ10 with PPQ. PPQ is not from here. It's not. They admit it. They spent billions of dollars testing our genome and it went, wow, we have less DNA than an onion. We don't. We're not even that complicated. But there are things about us that are. And hopefully, those things are what make us love each other. And I realize how old-fashioned it sounds for me to speak of love when you can just flip an iPhone app now and scroll through it like you're looking at the carousel in an old movie. It's an old movie, I won't even tell you what I'm thinking of. I know JP just thought of that movie I'm thinking of. But we don't do that anymore. We don't want to bond, really. We want to throw each other's bodies at each other. And, well, that's something, too. But I'm very glad that you two talk about what you do. I hear so many people talk about these alternative ideas that are supposed to be alternative. And I'm like, how is this alternative? We've always been a little different, and they've never been able to explain it. And I'm glad they can't. And if they could, they put a price tag on it. JP.
Trying to be different. I don't need to try to be different. It's like it takes all of my effort to to try and fit in and appear normal. I'm just, it's like straining at the leash. Was it? No, champing at the bit. That's right. To wait for the changes to happen. I know they're happening, and they're happening ever so slowly. But that's not people's fault. There's a large amount of it's an uphill challenge in many ways, because there's a lot of very, very difficult influences that are throwing everybody around and also bringing up their stuff from underneath. All the subterranean feelings. It's not just happening in the media and in Hollywood and in politics. It's happening in our own personal levels and in our own personal lives. And we're discovering things about ourselves that we didn't know, that we didn't want to know. That it's time to bring it out into the light. And that, when somebody's possessed, they don't know that they're possessed. It's like being dead or being stupid.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because as much as they try to obscure these things in many ways. We're fighting with these things in our environment, within our world, within our education, all of the, the typical New World Orders topics. And honestly, one of the things that I'm often reminded of and I often talk about is, as much as we are connected, as much as we need to live within the same schoolhouse or the same fishbowl, it's obviously, we've got to cooperate with one another, not even just on this planet, but all through the universe and creation. But what I'm saying is, uniqueness is the thing that they're trying to push away from people. So as much as we're connected, as much as we're, we run off the same operating principles, as much as our DNA may be the same, I look to our uniqueness as individuals. That is one of the most incredibly important things for progress and for success in breaking out of these systems that they would have manipulate us. So it's always a part of the subject that I throw in there because it's often one that's overlooked. I think throughout time, throughout history, if I look at the ancient world, ancient history, it's the people that stand out as unique, the people that sort of laugh in the face of some of the tradition, laugh in the face of those that would choose to manipulate them and say, no, I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to be who I am, and you're not going to suppress it. This is always an important topic because we live in a world, and I've said it before, but I'll say it again. We live in a world that says, look, you need to be this way. You need to be that way. From the moment we're born, we're told, you know what? First of all, let's put it this way. This is how I love to explain it. We come into our lives, and for the most part, most people don't remember the past. They don't have an awareness of their history. In many cases, people question if past lives are even real, if aliens are real, if people live in other worlds. I know our audience is very aware of these types of things, but overall in this world, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion, right? So when we come into our lives, into our existence, time and time again, and literally have no recollection of what came before us, it's so very easy for those who would choose to manipulate and control certain trends and movements of the mass population to place in front of us these synthetic choices. And this is what I call the education system, in many cases the military, the police system. A lot of these things are placed before us, and we as people with good hearts and good intentions want to, we feel inside, we feel like, oh, I want to find out what I am, what I can be, what I should do, what is my purpose. And we feel lost in many cases. So when these synthetic choices are placed right in front of us, it's very easy to migrate to them. It's very easy. They put it right in front of us. They know how this works. Of course, we're going to take the path of least resistance in most cases. So there they make our choices for us. Call it programming, they call it brainwashing, they call it all of these things. So I'm talking about this simply to sort of make it more obvious about the importance of uniqueness rather than conformity, because these artificial choices that are so often put in front of us are those choices of conformity. So I would be failing if I didn't bring the topic up of uniqueness and to think outside the box. I could go on and on about that. In fact, another part of that is the fact that through our experiences, through different mechanisms within our environment and our life, in our world, so many of us have come to a point where it's quite difficult to come to terms with other people's explanations, other people's experiences. In many cases, we're led or pushed or even magically induced to argue certain things rather than consider them for ourselves in a natural way through our own minds. So when I talk about individuality, there's many, many ways to break through it and work on it, and I know many of our listeners are lifelong seekers in that respect. lifelong practitioners of different techniques and different things. But it's just talking about it is part of the pathway back to what's natural, right? What's natural. So anyways, I know I've said a lot there. JP, Tracey?
A lot you said. Well,
did I even breathe?
But it's all connected, and so this is the theme. I was just you posted earlier. You know, there's a theme of connectedness.
Yeah.
And so so mushrooms, right? Mushrooms. Tracey, where are you? You in the somebody else's toilet in the back of my radio? Where are you? Come back. Come closer.
Sorry.
There we go.
Sorry.
There we go.
I didn't have it close enough to my mouth. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So we got through the whole fluffy bunny thing that I told you both, and you're like, what? We got through the cloud that has gone through this solar system, and it's still here, and it's still affecting us. Other than what is affecting us individually, we are linked in something bigger, but the majority of people don't feel that. We know that. They don't want to. People are being entertained to death right now. They're choosing that. They're eating for entertainment. They're having relationships for entertainment. They're doing everything for entertainment. Even prophecy is entertainment. Who's in control of the country is entertainment. We have the biggest idiot ever just south of me, and I can't even believe they elected this guy, but it's not that surprising to me because people are ruled by entertainment. They don't really want to feel what's going on. We are living through the sixth extinction. There are so many things dying around us on a daily basis that every single cellular being is fighting for its life. The only difference between us and them is they know they are. And we, for the most part, don't want to see what's going on. We don't want to feel it, and we are so disconnected. We are no longer even involved in it. We're not even involved. We're not even questioned. We won't even be a second thought when the next thing comes, because the earth is restocking at the moment, and that's obvious too. So there's always the ones that survive. There's always the ones that fight. It has nothing to do with money, really, but it has to do with currency a lot. Guys?
Keep going then. Currency.
Should I?
Energy.
Right,
Yes.
the currency of what currencies are they?
So, currency. Currency is physical, like you buy this for this, you trade this body part for this, you give this for this. Currency always happens. Everything exchanges. What we're trying to do is give something and get nothing, or give nothing and get something. That never works. It never works. You can, and this is magic. This is different. This is why there's a 3-letter word for life. You take 1 letter away, and it means death. But the word still means truth, and it's sounds completely weird, but it's an actual thing. You can make a golem with the magic word. There is a magic word. And it's why every book says there is a magic word. Every religion says there is a magic word. Actually, every religion is still trying to tell this exact same thing about currency, about what you have to do to get this. What you need to either trade or exchange. Exchange is better, but you don't have to. You can choose something else. You can choose another way. Each one of us can choose a different way to make this happen. But at this point, every cell in your body is fighting for life. Every cell on this planet, every being that is even cellular and sentient is fighting. It is fighting right now to live because things are not looking good. But this is also very, very exciting. Yeah, I find weird things fun. But you have to fight for this. If you want to be here, you need to fight. And most people aren't. They'd rather sit back and listen to a show all day and not really actually have to think or be involved in it. You can sit and listen. It can happen at you.
Well, that's sorry, Tracy. That's really an important part of what we're talking about, because people are immobilized, and in so many cases they're made to feel guilty, they're made to feel silly, they're made to feel just wrong, but yet they don't know why they can't do more. Notwithstanding the fact of survival, having to, make the currency of money to eat, and all of these natural physical things, there's much, much more at play here. There's much more at play. You're talking about the currency of energy, as JP alluded to there. It's the currency of energy. And these energies and these topics that you and JP and I are talking about, really many of them are the topics that have been obscured and hidden and messed with and played with and manipulated over time, over absolutely huge, vast amounts of time. The fact that energy plays such an important role as a currency is something that very, very few people actually truly deeply understand. This is the magic of life. This is the magic of the universe. And unfortunately, for the most part, this so-called magic, which again, I use that term with my tongue in my cheek, really meaning science that is really just misunderstood. It's been obscured, and it's been used by the people, for the most part, the people that would choose to use it to manipulate our world and to control our world, rather than put in the hands of the people who would actually use it to make it a better world, to make us healthier, to make our lives more abundant. This energy, again, going back to my comments about traditional science, modern science, I mean, I may sound a little bit bitter when I talk about science. Again, I remind the audience, I don't mean that science is completely useless. What I mean is it's been used as a mechanism to dissuade people from looking outside of that box at what really these things that have been obscured and hidden over time are. The fact that they even exist. I mean, we talk about being connected by energy. Well, science won't usually even acknowledge that some sort of energy exists. It's ridiculous. And we were talking about the threads of consciousness. It's the same thing. This is the fuel. This is the fuel of life. Life force, chi, ki, prana, all of these things. We are talking about a very real force that most of the world has actually been told and taught this is not significant, and most of the world believes it's not even real. It is absolutely incredible to think the misguided path on some of these topics that has been placed before people as these synthetic choices and beliefs again. So, I mean, for us to even discuss these things, for us to talk outside of the box, for us to consider our own experiences, our own knowledge, and our own understanding on these things is a hugely important part of, perpetuating something that's good and different than that which would choose to conceal it. So this, we talked from the very beginning tonight about, the internet radio, where it all began with Wolf Spirit Radio, with Tracy, with JP, and so many others of us, and so many of you in the audience. And really, this is truly the importance of what we've done all these years and what we're doing right now. All of us, the listeners, Tracey, JP, just literally talking about these things is pushing ourselves outside of the box of the science that chooses to hold us inside. It's just, I can't overemphasize the importance and the value of these topics, of doing what we're exactly doing right now, and the importance of radio stations such as Wolf Spirit Radio, Revolution Radio. These things, as JP was talking about earlier, are part of what has made us look back and reflect on where we came from even 10 years ago and where we are today. And I was mentioning earlier in the show how, wow, I actually patted myself on the back because we have made changes. We've made advancements in our own understanding, and we've become better people, I believe. Better people and more knowledgeable people that can share even more because we have more of the pieces. And this is just a wonderful thing. And I think just to sort of sum this part of it up, I think that this is what they take away from people. They take away the passion and the energy, the actual fuel, to make and give people the ability to have passion, to have creativity, to have higher-minded thoughts. All of these things come down to the fuel of life. And as I was saying a few minutes ago, so many people find themselves in a position where they can't act on what they think they should do. They can think of what they should do, but they can't actually make real steps forward. And this is because the fuel, the energy, is being consumed by something else. And again, being a topic that's been hidden and concealed over the ages, most people don't know where to go. Most people don't know what to do. So we have a lot of information out in the sort of the mainstream and the alternative world. It says, oh, do this, do that. But then there's always limited success with so much of that as well. So talking about these things, the threads of consciousness, the telepathic communication between things that are physical and different dimensions, as you were alluding to, Tracey, it's all part of getting us there and getting us more information about how these things work. I think it's just incredibly important. And I know without it, we couldn't even have any thoughts. We couldn't have any thoughts without the fuel for it. What do you think, JP?
Fuel for thoughts. It's coming up to the break, so we'll be, we've been talking about the connectedness of things and how everything, it always comes round to full circle, doesn't it? You start off with a conversation and then it comes round and, oh yeah, that's where we started. And we may have many cycles of that. But this is like the end of the world and the beginning of a new one. It's one conversation and another conversation, one conversation ends, another conversation begins.
Well, it's because I always say, in order to know where we're going, we absolutely have to understand from where we have come. We need to know where we've come from, what got us to where we are, the good and the bad, and then, as we'll talk about more after the break, some exciting things about technologies and upcoming projects that can actually, be tools that take us to the next level, take us to better control over our own lives and our own future. And I think that's really what it's about. Establishing, like we have in this hour, just where we've come from. Wow, it's just it's a 1 hour summary of our experiences, and it's only a bit of it. It's just a tip of the iceberg, and everything that our audiences over the years have experienced with us and been a part of, just like they were on the same horse ride.
Nice one. So, yeah, it's, here we go. It should be any second now. 5, 4, 3, 2. There's 56. No. Oh, we've got another minute to wait. Anyway, yeah, there you are. See? 6 seconds.
Stay with us, everybody. We will return after the break. And we're with Tracey Kennedy and JP Peron.
That's right.
Welcome back to Journeys with Rebecca. I am your host, Tobias Beherrall. Just a reminder to you that while Rebecca is away, she looks forward to connecting with you still through her personal sessions, which she welcomes you to book with her as they become available. I look forward to meeting many of you, as I do through my sessions and courses. You can find me at etlanguages.com. That's ET, yes, as in extraterrestrial. Remember to take a look at my course, Practical Modern Magic. I am now enrolling for the upcoming winter course season. If you've heard me talk about this many times and want to understand more about it, I welcome you to meet with me via video call to discuss it. I do this with people every week all around the world. You can do that by going to etlanguages.com/mentorship and following the link that says Book Discovery Call. And of course, Rebecca can be reached through her website, journeyswithrebecca.com. Please again take a look at that and everything that Rebecca has to offer as well. Right now, I am really urging people to subscribe to my YouTube channel at this time because of a new initiative. Get this, everyone. This is extremely exciting to me. There's a new initiative, and this is a big deal. It's coming up very soon that I will speak a little bit about. I'll be using both my newsletter and YouTube to announce updates on this project that involves you in ways that you may never have experienced before. So please subscribe to be the first to know. And on that initiative, I wrote something down here because I can't remember the words. There we go. So on this initiative, it has to do with exactly what we were talking about before the break. It has to do with energy. It has to do with consciousness. It has to do what fuels our lives in the universe and reality. It has to do with exactly what we spoke of earlier. And what I'm talking about, I can't say too much about until it goes live worldwide. This is called the Worldwide Positive Orgone Initiative, and it's an upcoming cyber orgone initiative that will allow many, many more people to experience just that. The energy like this, the things that we've been talking about with energy, technologies, and the availability of such fuel for themselves. So I'm extremely excited. I have teamed over the summer with the world's leading authorities and scientists on this topic itself. And that's about all I will say tonight. But I urge you, because this is not about me, this is about all of you, to actually have experiences and feel it for yourself, understand it for yourself on new levels that you probably haven't had access to do before. This is the reason behind my excitement at this new project, even though I'm not giving you too much information. Do, again, subscribe to me on YouTube, and it's a great idea always to subscribe to my newsletter at ET Languages as well, and you will be the first to know about all of this stuff. Tonight, I have been talking with JP Peron, producer of Old Spirit Radio, and in fact, the man behind the scenes. JP, welcome back.
Hey there, Tobias. Well, we also have, she's gone. We were joined by Tracey, and I want to also let everybody know that Tracey had a completely life-changing effect on me. That's why she's so integral to this whole thing. And she did me this past life reading that she'd never taken to the limits before, and we went beyond the limits of any other past life reading. And it started me on a journey that gave me, that took me, to the furthest reaches of our distant past, and to the far-flung reaches of the future as well. And in discovering what the meaning behind all the symbols that she brought up in the reading and the story, quite accurate and quite I don't know. It brought things. It brought a reason to things. It made sense. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the whole the thing, and I wanted to give that to Tracey. So I hope you're still listening, Tracey. Further on from that, we come to our most recent history, and we were talking in the chat room earlier on before we did the show. Earlier on this evening, the first show that I did this evening with Jessica Morocco had had a very spontaneous message come through from a character who appears, well, he's a character, he's a being who appeared in a book that I was reading 2 years ago about the development of the Nazi bell.
Yes, technology.
Yes, technology. The Wunderwaffe.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the word you used earlier before the show with me? You said it was DIE something. Die.
Die Glocke.
Tell us about this. Tell us about this technology.
All right, so let's just get the words, right? Mm-hmm. Glocke is the word we get clock from, and it's the German word for bell.
Ah, right. I get it.
Yeah, so like the firearms manufacturer is Glock, isn't it? You know,
I think so. They call it a Glock 47 or something.
Yeah,
hey,
so it's a manufacturer. It's just like Bell. You know, it's like Bell Labs. Right? Yeah. Same people, maybe same family, the Glock family. Anyway, meet the Glocks.
We're not related to the Glocks. Just saying, just establishing this.
Meanwhile,
or maybe we are. Who knows?
So, meanwhile, there was. And this is very interesting because there's a connection here with your Orgon project. Mm-hmm. Okay, right. Part of the weapon was to create a flying machine, to recreate the Vimana. The Vimana, the ancient flying machine that was developed, or that was talked about in the Vedas, in these very ancient books, more than 6,000 years old. And like the books themselves are 6,000 years old, and they're talking of stories from beyond 10,000 years old. They're talking about Atlantis and Lemuria and what was going on there, and the battles and things that were going on there. And in these battles, they were also using these machines called Vimana. And it's a kind of, I suppose it's sort of, it's like a little, sometimes you could say they look like a little temple. It's got a little pointy head, pointy top, and but it doesn't look like a flying machine like we think of a flying machine, like with wings and a tailplane, because it creates a spherical field, and so you can build any form within it. So they made a little comfortable little temple-like thing in the past. Sorry.
No, so you're talking about the machine that people sit in with their knees up in front of them, and it looks like it's a framework of all these different physical, like almost like an engine of sorts. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the Vimana.
Yeah. So I saw somebody post an image of that on Facebook the other day, and I thought, wow, it's very weird because it doesn't look like a flying machine. It looks like something that you'd sit in and it would drain your blood or something.
Exactly. So. Yeah. All sorts of design. So, now basically, I'm not sure if the drive system is the same. Okay, but this is the most important thing. This is where the Aldebarans come in. Basically, if you can develop one of these things, you essentially have a free energy source because once you got it spinning fast enough, it starts doing weird. What is it? Weird things, spooky action at a distance. You know,
yes.
Things get quantum when you start doing this stuff. Now, one of the things that they were developing was a mixture of mercury and thorium and iron, and they would boil this stuff. And it would create this purple radioactive liquid that was magnetic as well. So the thorium brought the radioactivity, the mercury brought the liquidity, and the iron brought the magnetism. And they would boil it together, and it would create a substance which was purple, and it was called red mercury. Hang on a second, because when I say those words, you really need to feel its import. So I'm going to say it again because they made it and it was called red mercury. That's because it's important, right? This stuff.
Yes.
Now, the connection with the Aldebrands. There was a group. They were called the Vril Society. Have you heard of the Vril Society?
Most definitely. Secret organization that people know a little bit about now. Tell us more.
Okay. Well, one of the things that they were like, I mean, in a way they were like, I suppose, who would you call them? What would they be like these days? Huh. Well, yeah. The Scientologists, right?
You went there.
No kidding. It's true, though.
It makes sense. Yeah, it does. It makes sense. I can think of several other groups that I could compare them to, but yeah, that's one of them.
They were very idealistic.
Yeah.
Put it that way. Let's put it that way. Let's make it very put it in a good frame. Very idealistic. And so they would they developed the kind of telepathic abilities to channel long distances by raising their vibration and growing their hair very long, and also having sex. Did you know that? It was part of the whole thing. There was a whole sexual thing going on there. And so the Nazis got interested in it because they believed that they could channel their master, what was it, Eckert or something, Master Erhard? Anyway, Meister Eckert, that's right. So they went along to the Vril Society to see if they would channel him. And this other being comes through, and he starts talking about the flying machines that they're trying to build.
Ah, yes.
So this takes us to the Vimana, or this round. It's called Die Glocke, right? The bell, the Nazi bell.
So in other words, just let me butt in for a second here. In other words, they were channeling information from beings or people not from here. That's what.
Yes, they were channeling. They were channeling beings from Aldebaran.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Have you heard of Aldebaran?
I've heard of Aldebaran. Is that the word?
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I really don't know what it is, but you just said that it's basically the world of Aldebaran. Yeah,
well, it's one of the planets. I don't know the name of the planet that they live on. I'm finding that out. They're quite mysterious, these Aldebarans.
But they know stuff.
And they've been a little bit pesky. Anyhow, those pesky Aldebarans. They're also known in your world as tall whites.
Ah, interesting.
Right, but they're not the nice tall whites. They're the sort of tall whites that are kind of very pointy looking. Long pointy chins and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the white witches. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Anyway.
I shouldn't say that. I don't want any unexpected visitations tonight.
They're the Aryans that the Germans were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, there they were, and they were channeling these beings, and eventually the being called Anquil said, you need to use a form of concentrated orgon. In our planet, we call it Vril, and it's a magnetic ferrofluid. And then his voice trails away into the great galaxy, and so that's what they then started looking for. So the guy who went to the Vril meeting goes to Hans Kammler and says, I don't know what he's talking about. We need something called a magnetic ferrofluid. And then essentially Dr. Strangelove, his name is Werner Eckert. Right, another bloody Eckert. Never trust an Eckert. I don't know. Never met a good Eckert.
It'll take a tolly on you.
So there's Eckert, and he's the archetypal evil Nazi mad scientist. He's the Rick, and so he's wandering around, and he's he's messing around with all kinds of nasty, evil chemicals, and discovered that this particular mixture, which he called Serum 525, had the same qualities as this Vril. So he said, how much does this cost to make? And he said, $6 million a gram.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? It is so typical, isn't it?
Yeah.
People will take the natural things in our world. You know, I won't even give too many examples. Take natural plant medicine, natural this and that, and they will synthesize it and say that they own it, and then they will try to sell it for ridiculous prices, just like this. And really,
no, it's not because it's trying to charge a lot of money. It's because it uses an enormous amount of power. You basically empty a power station in one night to make some of this stuff.
Which type of power station?
Like a coal-powered station. You need to boil thorium, mercury, and iron together in a plutonium reactor or something.
Wow. So, but they're literally, Serum 525, what you're describing is a synthetic life force prana ki chi energy.
Yes, but it's very dirty. And anybody who is exposed to it, and he exposed, experimented on it. He did all sorts of things with it in really, 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 really tiny quantities. Really tiny quantities. It can be used and is being used by the elite as a kind of life force tonic. Right? You might have also heard of it in that respect as like a homeopathic tonic of some kind. But it's essentially incredibly dirty form of energy. You know, if you thought nuclear power was bad, but what it does is whatever you put with this stuff, it kind of it amplifies it.
What do you mean? Tell us more.
If you, for instance, if you had a few drops of red mercury in an atomic weapon, it would probably turn 10 megatons into 100 megatons at least.
So it amplifies what you place with it.
Yeah, it's incredibly unstable, and so here's what you do, right? So this is where the big happens, right? Because he says, Kamala says, right, okay, so it's $6 million a gram, and the design of this deglocker requires 2 tons of this material, 2 tons of red mercury, and obviously a ton of mercury. It's very dense stuff, so doesn't take up much of a space. And so they filled 2 cylinders with this stuff, which they eventually created. This is about 1942, 43, and they knew the war was turning, and they knew that the Allies were headed towards Berlin, Dunkirk, and the invasion, D-Day. So that was all happening. That was all approaching, and they were actually 1 month away from being able to deploy this thing when the Allies broke through into Berlin. So this was all right. So we build up. You take 2 cylinders of this stuff and you mount them on a spindle with counterweights, right, so that they can spin. You then spin them in opposite directions, one clockwise, one counterclockwise. You then apply the current so that they become electromagnetic. You're now dealing with 2 opposite magnetic fields. It's like north to north, yet they're all bolted together. Okay? And this thing is really spinning, because the famous sound of a UFO. Oh, that's what the thing sounds like. That's a glocker. It's a bell.
Because it's pulling in chi energy.
Well, no, it's bloody whining away. It's a mechanical device. It's whining like a machine, like a washing machine. You know, that's why it's. That's how fast it's going. You know, it's going. Anyway, so it's run on an electric motor, electric drive, and it generates power as well. Once the thing's spinning, it generates loads of power, so it recharges its power cells. So anyway. That's the drive of Die Glocken. Now there is this place, a very famous place now in Poland, which was known as the Henge. Have you seen this thing?
In Poland? No, I don't recall this.
Well, it's below Castle Kazitz, which was where they did this thing, where they developed the Glock. It's now in Poland. It was in Germany, but it's now in Poland. And there's this famous thing they call the Henge. And it looks like a kind of concrete Stonehenge thing. Great big ring. But I tell you, it's huge. You know, Stonehenge is like 20 feet high. If you put Stonehenge in the middle of this thing, it would look like a toy. Right? These walls, the pillars were 50 feet high, made of concrete. But it was so camouflaged that you could almost bump into these into these concrete pillars. Anyway, they would then attach huge titanium chains to these pillars, and then to the Glock itself. So the chains would slide up the pillars till when this thing rises up in the air, right? So as it goes further up in the air. The chains are holding it down. The Glock is the Henge holds the Glocker down. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yes,
because it levitates, right? Okay, so now, all right. So let's create. We got the gravity field, and it's spinning counterclockwise with this thing, and the zim zom, and as it spins further and further, eventually it gets to a point where the bottom starts to wobble, and then it starts slowly to raise off the ground. And it will get to the point, it will rise up as the speed goes up, the power goes up, as it gets to the top of its run, and then it starts putting stress onto the chains. It starts to emit a green fog. And at some point disappears. This really impressed Hitler when he saw that. Anyhow, the next phase, because it's still there, they're like, where's it gone? It's still here. You know, the operator still had the camera from inside it, and they had a little remote control thing going on. He had the joystick. Move it. And so he moved it. But it didn't slide from one place to another. It snapped. It was kind of in this dimensional space where any movements were like instant. And it could become invisible. So there's something to, the idea of, in Star Trek, they the cloaking, the things, I don't think it takes that much to phase out. I think they've got cloaking down. Probably one of the first things. That was what the Philadelphia experiment was about, cloaking as well. So I think they've got cloaking down. We saw it in the X-Files, didn't we? Yeah, that last X-Files, they had that ARV, and they hit the button, and a laser squeezes onto some Pentium, and boom, the whole thing disappears. So, meanwhile, your Glock is spinning away, and it's floating, all right? And this is a bell-shaped thing, and it's floating, and it's straining against these chains. And then they turn it up even further, and then that's when the lightning comes. This kind of blue plasma lightning that goes, and bomb.
Blue plasma.
Yes, then the portal opens.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the portal is then that's like a tunnel to anywhere. All right,
Mm-hmm.
They can then steer the end using the same thing, and then all right. So here's the thing: this is why it was the Wunderwaffe. Right? This is the big secret weapon that the Nazis had. They could then get a bomber to fly over this thing and drop a weapon into the field,
Mm-hmm.
which would then be delivered instantly anywhere with no warning.
Mm-hmm.
That was the wonder weapon. That was the Wunderwaffe, the secret Nazi weapon that everybody had this, there's always been this rumor of the secret Nazi weapon, and this was it.
That just reminds me of, wasn't it Reich who figured out how these energies transmit anywhere in the world? Wasn't it Reich they were talking about, was going to make it so that they could defend a country no matter where the enemy was?
Yeah, and this would do it. This thing, I mean, they've probably got lots of things that will do it now. But this device, right, becomes the power unit for the UFO, which we now discover is not something that was run by aliens. It was created by the Germans, and aliens were a distraction.
Mm.
Hey, Tracey. I hear Tracey in the back of the box again.
Yeah, I couldn't let you go full Nazi without me.
So,
German people would a lot of drugs. A lot.
Oh, yeah, they were very into it.
Women. When they found out what it did to women who had just had babies, they started to give it to the military. There's a drug, and everyone can look it up if you really want to get like full nerd with JP and I. Look up D9. They made this submarine that was super small. You could only sit 2 people in it, and they had to sit like foot to bum, basically. It was only long enough for 2 people to sit like that. But 2 men could take this drug and go in an unheated metal drum, basically, under the water. And they almost won the war. They almost won the war because of the drugs that they used that opened their minds, blew their minds open way before LSD. And they actually made the first crack cocaine. It was them. And these drugs opened their minds so much that they thought of new things. They made something. It was so close. It was so close. They wanted to put a satellite up in space that was basically a great big mirror. And they were going to just tip it towards countries and burn them. They were within days of it. Days. Unfortunately, and there's records of this, you can find it, it's not hidden anymore, you can look it up, that their soldiers were so stoned, this is how they were cold. It made them cold and unfeeling. They could march for 4 days without food or sleep and still kill your ass when they got there. That's how they did it. And then United States idea to counteract that was to make bennies. So the whole Benny and the Jets and all that stuff and what America did after, they were just trying to catch up to the Nazis who had their mind-blowing ideas, and they probably actually contacted something, because we know from shaman all over the world that there's certain chemicals you can take that get you in contact with other beings. And I think they actually did contact something. But these people were stoned, and they were cold, and they almost won through chemicals. Chemicals. And everything they built, they did it with their own minds. They did. Their minds were blown open and they saw other things. They saw other realities. They connected to other beings. Drugs. I'm not saying I love them, but that's what they did.
It's really, really interesting because JP has been talking about the mercury thorium iron mix, which is obviously some sort of synthetic prana or life force. We were talking earlier about about chi, life force. It's the same thing. This energy being used to fuel.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And the drugs, certain drugs, especially if it's closer to a natural compound. You know, I have MS. Most people know that. They always say, Tracy, have you tried marijuana? Have you tried cannabis? You have to understand, if you take a power plant of any kind, first of all, but a power plant, you have to you need to really understand that plant. You can't just randomly take a plant. Plants were here first, and they don't want to be eaten. They will kill you, and they're trying to kill you, and they want to kill you. They don't want you here. You eat them. Maybe just spread their seeds later at a certain time. But power plants, these are sentient beings, and you need to be respectful. So these guys, in the time that was closed-minded, these guys opened a portal to something that we had not even touched in the way we are touching things now. The science that we've chosen is, again, kind of nihilistic. In the best case, they look at things separately, like they are separate individuals, but plants, animals, we don't react in separateness. Things are very complex. They're very related. They're related to things around you. There's environment it's grown in. There's the way it was planted, the way it was picked. There's its attitude towards you. There are many, many things. You can't just randomly say, here, smoke this thing, it'll be fine. It will not be fine. It will not be fine. You need to be a participant in your life. Most people aren't. So these people, most of them didn't know they were taking drugs at first. They put it in the water. And then eventually, and you can look this up too, they ended up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to give their soldiers and their regular people drugs. So we cannot blame the Germans for what they did. They were totally cut off from their hearts and souls. They couldn't feel anymore. They were given drugs to not feel anymore, but it made them really smart. It did.
They were very much into the amphetamine side of things, definitely.
Oh my God. But the D9 was, okay, let's go in this that's super cold and take a mixture of crack, meth, adrenaline, and some caffeine for fun. They mixed stuff together that had never been tested before. They mixed mushrooms with everything, and if they had have just mixed the mushrooms, it might have been fine. But they made things synthetic, and we have their chemistry in our pills. And I mean, all of us all over the world now.
Yeah, who was it that made all these chemicals in the end? Is these pharmaceutical companies like Merck and Bayer and all that lot?
Yeah. They tried to synthesize something real, but we can't do that. We're not that smart. When we synthesize something real, it becomes poison. There's a beautiful mushroom that you can buy off a shelf that will heal MS. They make a medicine from a synthesized version of it that will kill you. Literally. So these things, I know it sounds fantastic to some people that it's all magic, but magic is an energy exchange, and if you don't exchange it properly, it will hurt you. Giving and taking can be both very, very powerful things, as both Tobias and JP have told you. Very powerful. Very, and I'm not judging good or bad. Good or bad, we're way beyond this now. But right and wrong, that matters. And how involved you are with the thing you're taking matters. There's nothing on this planet that is not sentient. So what you put in your mouth, what you choose to do with that, matters. Energy exchange is everything. That's all we have. That's all we are. So, I'm sorry, I was going to let you go, and I am actually going to let you guys go, but yeah, don't go full Nazi without me.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Well, it's really interesting what you're saying there, because it harkens back to what we touched on earlier when it comes to the energy and the different systems, physical and non-physical systems, where energy or where things are delivered through the energy. Things are all connected in these different ways. That really is the magic. And when we have these synthesis, they're trying to synthesize nature. They're trying to take it over. In effect, I mean, I know it sounds grandiose, but truly, in effect, they're trying to be gods. They're trying to be what's natural. They're trying to synthesize what nature has created. And it creates the perfect delivery system for not only good things, but bad things, control systems, evil things, all of these things. So, again, these are the secrets that have been obscured. And they're on all different levels, but at the same time, it's all connected to all of these different subjects. It's fascinating when JP talks about them synthesizing chi, because that's really what they're doing. It's all of these things that we've seen, and all of these stories that we hear, and all of these things that we can sort of discover through research, like JP was done with the Vril and Elderbron and the Vimanas and things. It's amazing because we're all talking about all the same thing, really. We're talking about the energy, and earlier I alluded to the fact that science will tell us, no, it's not even real. Yet it's the thing that's behind so many of these projects that are hidden, concealed, and in fact it's behind the manifestation of life itself.
It's like they're suddenly leaking science. Like they just found it. It makes me laugh with their new discoveries. Even, you know how much I love sigils and signs and things like that. And I'm like, now I look at it and people are showing me, have you looked at this? And this is deep esoteric secret, Tracy, do you understand? And I said, yes, I understand that someone just found their spinal cord. Awesome. You know, I'm looking at these sigils and I'm realizing it's just your spinal cord. That's where you get the number 33. It's not bad. It's from your freaking spinal cord.
It's like energy. People say, oh, is it evil? No, it's not. It's neutral. It's literally neutral, except what people use it for is either for good or bad. As simple as that. So there is no evil energy. There's nasty energy that doesn't, mesh with our own energies, and it feels bad and can even hurt us. But that doesn't make the energy evil. It's not trying to get us. It's what people do with these things that is evil. And that's truly the nature of what people will call magic, and all of these occultic things, practices, and really this is the beauty of sort of coming to an understanding of how it all works, because instead of feeling that we're being victimized by people that choose to control our world, with the right knowledge in the right place and the right application of these things, we can really connect how it's all working, because it's all the same system. It doesn't matter if it's, bad people manipulating the minds. It doesn't matter if it's action at a distance. It doesn't matter if it's healing people from a distance, or creating thoughts in people's heads, or creating benefit of focus and passion. All of these things are all energy related. And, of course, they're being used against people every single day, and have been for, God only knows how many, thousands and thousands of years. but it's outside of the hands of most of the people. So when we can put the understanding or some of the tools and mechanisms behind how it works back into the hands of the right people that will use it for healing, people that use it for advancing the higher-minded thoughts, such as JP was talking about with some of these people, and you were talking about with the soldiers. They're trying to replicate, obviously, higher-minded thoughts. Unfortunately, from what it sounds like to me, these people were drugging the people, which is sort of counteracting the natural higher-minded thoughts. So they're trying to induce this chi action, which is to open up your consciousness, and they were failing because they were drugging them to try to get them there, so it counteracted it. Interesting, isn't it?
It's what they're doing to us. Our food is poisoned for a reason.
Yeah.
It's what they've done. It's happening. Energy is just energy.
Absolutely.
It doesn't care about good or bad. It's like, are you going to interact with it, or are you going to let it act on you? Mm-hmm. That's the choice. That's the difference. What are you going to do? And good or bad, at this point, to be honest, I think we're way, way, way past that. Yeah, we can make moral decisions. These are cultural things, and they will change at the drop of a hat. But to keep yourself strong, you need to fight for that. And if there are a group of elite, rich people, and I guess that's what we're calling elite, that have understood that, then that's good for them. The strong will survive. The weak won't.
No, well, it's the people that have the knowledge, right? I hear a lot of times people talking about, the controllers of this world are going to be taken down and all of this. Well, I think the best way for a balance to be struck, or even the balance to be put out of place, is for people to take the knowledge back themselves, to be able to do it themselves, right? JP, are you there? I had something I was going to tell JP. JP has left the building. I will tell the audience instead. We're talking about these functions of chi, energy. JP was talking about the mercury, thorium, iron, the Vimanas, and what was it called, serum 25. It's a synthetic life force. They're synthesizing life force. And it's interesting, as part of one of my lessons in my course, Practical Modern Magic, I'm just going to read, and this is actually just one small paragraph out of Lesson 2 of my Practical Modern Magic course, and it reads as follows. Other life force energy notes about function. It is worth noting that when fields of life energy are shifted relative to one another, you generate more life energy. It is possible that what is actually happening is that a vortex is created that draws life force energy from the universal energy field. So it's very interesting for me to note, because I believe this is the function of the spaceship engines, as they would be called, and all of the things that you're describing, making the humming noises. I think it's a perpetual energy device that draws it through the field. Perhaps the way to start it up would be through something like Serum 525, although that's just as a technological device and engine. Really, again, it harkens back to what we were talking about in the first hour about the fact the energy has to do with consciousness. Absolute consciousness. It fuels not only physical technologies such as spaceships, etc., but it fuels the mind. It fuels the mind. And I think what's really incredible, just to sort of pull it back into perspective again, what you're talking about, JP, what the Vril Society did and was trying to synthesize the life force and do all of these things, and in fact succeeded in many ways, going interdimensional and using the energy to create higher-minded thoughts and information and connections with people, probably off-world, I think clearly off-world. These are the same practices with the natural life force energy, the chi field, that I was talking about earlier, when it comes to more people being able to experience this for themselves in a positive way, in an uplifting way, with with the Worldwide Positive Orgone Initiative that I was talking about, which will be unveiled more and more in the very near future. You know, people talk about orgonite. People talk about making their own orgonite pyramids and different things. Certainly you've done that, JP. In your experience, these are just life force technologies. They are life enhancing, and it can be certainly, I don't know if you ever tried to put one in your spaceship to fuel it, but it certainly fuels health and higher-minded thoughts and things like that, right, JP?
Yes, indeed. Higher-minded thoughts, that's what we need on this planet. Things, you know, that have a win-win situation at the end. I like those things. That's what we're kind of looking at. We're trying to get everybody to get to a win-win situation rather than being in a defensive, fearful position.
Absolutely. And people are fearful when they don't have the right information. So that's the entry point for those that would want to control them, because they just instill fear. Oh, we don't want them to go that direction. We don't want them to think this way. Oh, they're talking about energy. Let's make them feel silly, or create dogmatic beliefs, or make them sound ridiculous to other people, so they'll steer the other way. And that's really what their sort of control mechanism has always been, and it's very, very effective. You know, again, earlier we were talking about how people, you know, sort of don't know what to do, or don't really have the ability to do anything, because they're just trying to survive, and they're just trying to, you know, many times people are sitting there wondering why they can't do more, why they can't get to the higher-minded thoughts, or why they can't, you know, take physical action to go in and do whatever they should be doing. It's because of energy deprivation. It's exactly what we've been talking about all night when it comes to the fuel. It's absolutely energy. We talk about, you know, people that are deprived. We talk about people, we talk about the world around us. We see it all around us, yet people can't connect to it. I mean, even in dance clubs, when people jump up and down, and there's a huge energy field created, just as I was reading from my course there, when fields of life energy are shifted relative to one another, that's people jumping up and down and doing the same thing. Or in charismatic churches for, you know, centuries. In charismatic churches, they jump up and down, they holler and they sing and they move their arms. They literally are creating a life force energy vortex. They're bringing the life force in. Now, the question is, well, what can you do with it? How do you direct it? How do you direct it to heal people? How do you do it all? And that's what people call magic, right? We can use these things for our benefit. A lot of people are frightened by even the term magic, because there's such negative connotations with it. Again, I remind you that it's just really science that most of the world does not understand how it works, because it's been concealed. It's been very, very difficult and challenging for people to connect all of the dots to actually use it for themselves. But this is what it is. All of these things around us, the church steeples, are antennas for energy. And what happens underneath those steeples? There's a congregation of people that gather together for one purpose. Well, at least that's what the custom was a long time ago. In this day and age, in so many cases, it's one person in control of the energy, using the people to, you know, for nefarious reasons, or using it to control the people. But we're talking about the same thing all around us. All around us. You know what? It's just right there, but people usually can't connect the dots, not only because they don't have the information, but because the magic, the so-called magic, is actually being used against them to make it more difficult to get to the answers. This is the nature of our world. So to be able to discuss the things that we have tonight about energy, about the fuel for creation, the fuel for passion, higher-minded thoughts, all of this stuff, this is what we need to learn more of. This is what we need to experience more of. And I don't want to overstate it, but I'm very excited. This is why I'm so excited about the initiative coming up, because more people, you know, will have access to this type of experience with this energy, chi energy, in a very effective way, to allow you to experience this for yourself and see what positive effects it has on you. And it's been used throughout time. That's what a pyramid is. That's what a pyramid is, obviously. It's an energy device. So very exciting. JP, any last words? I can't believe we're nearing the top of the second hour.
Well, there you go. This is this is what happens when we all get together, and it's lovely, and it's great to chat with you. Great to do a full circle with you.
Yes.
That was quite fun, and how it always comes down to the time-traveling Nazis. Who knows?
Yeah.